sleeping with my best friend Cassie, their makeup streaked with tears.
And that's when you turn around and go the other way.
Slowly running his tongue over his lips.
Hola, mis amores. Anyways, it's me, Jada, and we're back with another video, of course. Today we're going to be reacting to Summertime Horror Stories Animated. These animations are from Amores Scary Tales, so thank y'all for letting me use your content. I hope you guys are doing okay spiritually, mentally, physically, and all that other good stuff. And we're going to go ahead and get right into it.
Warning, the following video contains disturbing content that may not be appropriate for some viewers. You have been warned.
Alright.
When Trevor invited me on a camping trip, I was ready to decline. Trevor and I had been dating for approximately 2 years now, but I'm ready to walk away now. Why? Because he's sleeping with my best friend Cassie.
Ooh.
I figured that—
Dang, you should never let her get your best friend. Look at him all happy over here. What are you
sleeping
happy
with
for?
my best friend Cassie. I figured this had to be my moment. The moment I called them both out and broke up with Trevor while still having Cassie and Jordan watch. It was the beginning of summer in Alabama, and while it was warm, it was still a proper temperature for outdoor activities. We got to the campground shortly before sunset. Trevor picked a spot that was slightly back into the trees. All I could think about was it being like a horror movie where the unsuspecting campers are murdered. No one cared about location, but everyone was happy. When the sun set after we had set up camp and everyone began drinking, Jordan turned the speaker he brought to the max volume and started playing songs by Post Malone. Cassie danced like she was auditioning for a rap music video. And Trevor, he
Don't stop, get it.
barely looked in my direction. I was sitting on a log, gnawing on chicken wings, feeling like a ghost. Then it happened. A soda can rolled into our circle. Clink, clink. Before we could react, it burst open, releasing a thick cloud of smoke. Yo! What the? Jordan coughed.
Is that a smoke bomb?
Cassie shrieked. All went dark. I woke up in a dimly lit room. We four were seated in a semicircle, with our hands tied back with rough, scratchy rope. My head throbbed. Dude, what the hell just happened? Jordan groaned. God, my head's still spinning, Trevor muttered. And then we heard it, the clapping. A figure stepped
Get in there, you gnawing on a piece of chicken, you should be running. I got so much to say.
out from the shadows, a man standing like an unhinged robot, with a wide grin plastered on his face, as though he had just stepped out of Friday the 13th. Hello, hello, he said gleefully, arms extended outward. Welcome to my little party. Cassie immediately began to cry.
Please, please, just let us go. We didn't do anything.
He cocked his head to one side. Oh, princess, that's the problem. You haven't accomplished anything good yet. Out of nowhere, he revealed a hunting knife and cut Jordan across the arm. Jordan shrieked, jerking against the ropes. Blood soaked into his shirt. Whoopsie! The man chuckled. Silly me. Trevor squirmed in his seat. You're insane, bro. Let us go. The man locked eyes with him. He smiled, walked over, and slowly pressed the tip of the blade against Trevor's cheek. He plunged the knife into Trevor's thigh. Trevor let out a scream that could have woken the entire neighborhood. I simply observed, unperturbed.
Why is she sitting there looking? Oh, she in on it. Yeah.
Cassie now in hysterics, wailing and pleading for mercy. The man turned to me, tilting his head. And you? You just sit there. You're not scared, sweetheart? I stared the man down, expressionless.
No.
He blinked, somewhat surprised. Huh. I let out half a smile.
My life is already a joke. You might as well put me out of my misery.
The man's eyes narrowed with interest. He crouched in front of me, assessing my face. Ho ho ho! Go on, you've piqued my interest. He wiped the blade against Trevor's jeans again and moved closer. What's your story, pretty thing? I turned my gaze towards Cassie and Trevor.
You want to know why I'm not scared?
My voice was low but steady. I looked directly at them.
Because my boyfriend and best friend are screwing each other behind my back.
Trevor's eyes widened.
What?
Cassie's face went pale.
No, she's lying. She's... Save it.
I spat.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
The man whistled. Wow, plot twist. Didn't see that one coming. He stood up and clapped his hands once more. You know what? You're fun. I like you. He pointed his knife toward Cassie, then Jordan. Tell you what, I'll let you live, but you gotta help me bury your friends. Deal? I didn't hesitate.
Deal.
I looked at Jordan.
You knew too, but kept it a secret.
Cassie screamed.
What? No, please. Oh my God, please. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
I didn't flinch. The man grabbed Cassie by the hair, yanked her to the edge of a freshly dug grave, and slashed her throat in one swift motion. Blood sprayed across the dirt as she gurgled and fell into the hole. Her eyes locked onto mine as she choked out her last breath. Next was Jordan. The man repeatedly stabbed him in the chest. By the time he dropped in the pit, his face was hardly recognizable. Trevor was sobbing, shaking like a baby. The man grabbed the collar of his coat and dragged him toward the grave. When the man was about to slice open Trevor's throat, I lunged. I swung the shovel hard against the back of his head. The man teetered and stumbled a few steps, blood rolling down.
So, you let the girl... But you ever her fighting? I guess just to survive on her own, but like, I'm just finish it because I don't want to judge too soon.
The side of his temple. Before he could react, I swung again, harder, and
Wow.
fell into the grave. He tried to speak, but I kicked his face, and without another word, I shoved him into the pile of corpses. His body landed.
Dude over here, like, I should have never cheated. Look at her, she got the orbs on her too. I don't know
With
why
a
he thought
sickening
he was
crunch,
safe.
I grabbed the shovel and started throwing dirt in the hole. Trevor, still shaking, stared at me wide-eyed. You saved me! I didn't say anything. Oh God, I'm so sorry, babe. I swear, I'll never hurt you again. You saved my life. He was holding on to me and sobbing into my shoulder. A few minutes later, the cops arrived, and Trevor was still crying while he gave them his statement. I was sitting on the tailgate of the ambulance, ensconced in a blanket and sipping from a water bottle. Trevor dialed his parents, still in shock. We barely made it out alive, he wept. As the paramedics tended to him, I turned to the camera the officers were setting up for the press. My lips curled into a smile.
It's not easy fooling a hitman.
I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. I let out a dark chuckle.
But I passed with flying colors.
Like, did she hire him or? Okay, yeah.
I've always been drawn to the things that make Zach nervous. There's something about his cautious, we shouldn't, that makes me want to say we absolutely should. That summer day wasn't any different. The sun blazed overhead, turning the secluded beach into an oven. My skin was already burning despite the sunscreen Zach had insisted we both apply repeatedly, but I didn't care. Being 15 meant hunting for adventure, wherever I could find it. Dude, check that out! I pointed toward a structure I spotted behind the dunes. A weathered shack with splintered boards and a partially collapsed roof, almost hidden from view. Zach squinted against the sunlight. Probably just some old storage thing. But I was already trudging through the hot sand toward it. I could feel him hesitating before following. As we got closer, there was a smell that hit me like a punch to the gut. Rotting seaweed mixed with something sour and wrong. That's when I saw him. A man sitting behind the shack in a frayed beach chair. Everything about him was unsettling. His skin was burnt to leather, cracked and peeling in places. Greasy hair hung in salt-crusted...
See, and this is where you run. I don't know why they're still standing here with... Okay.
ropes around a face that seemed both too old and too young at the same time. Hot day, huh, boys? His voice was like sandpaper on rust. I nodded casually. Yeah, nice spot you got here. His cracked lips spread into what I guess was meant to be a smile. "I've got something even better inside." He gestured toward a smaller structure behind the main shack that I hadn't noticed before. "You boys like girls?" I felt Zach's hand grip my arm, his fingers digging in hard, but I couldn't look away from the man's captivating bloodshot eyes. "Got some rare footage," the man continued, slowly running his tongue over his lips. "Stuff you won't find online." "Let's check it out," I whispered.
You freaked out. You freaked out. See, and this is when you leave your friend for dead, because what do you mean? Let's go check. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You want to see unseen footage? You're freaked out, bro. I should have known from the red hair and the red
As I
eyebrows.
followed the man toward the smaller hut. The moment I stepped inside, I knew I'd made a terrible mistake. The air was thick and rancid, like breathing through a dirty sponge. Faded posters covered the walls, girls in bikinis, but their eyes looked wrong, vacant, terrified. "Make yourselves comfortable," the man said, gesturing to two metal folding chairs facing a yellowed projector screen. My heart hammered in my chest, but my stupid pride wouldn't let me back out now. I sat down, feeling Zach reluctantly do the same behind me. The man switched on an ancient VCR and grainy footage flickered to life on the screen. It started innocently enough, young women laughing on a beach, splashing in waves. But the camera movements felt invasive, lingering too long,
We don't need that.
zooming in when
Okay.
they weren't looking. Then, the footage cut abruptly. The same women were now in a dark room, blindfolded and gagged, their makeup streaked with tears. My throat closed up. The next scene showed a room with plastic sheets covering the walls. One of the girls was dragged in, thrashing wildly. "Turn it off!" I abruptly stood up, disgusted.
Now you scared, little bro? Now you're scared?
The man chuckled, a sound like gravel shifting, and paused the video. He leaned forward until I could smell his breath. "Wow, we're just getting to the good part." He reached for a shelf and picked up what looked like a blood-stained hair scrunchie, bringing it to his nose with a contented sigh. "You know what makes this so special?" he asked, his eyes never leaving mine. "I was the cameraman, director, and sometimes the actor." My gaze dropped to the floor. What I thought were rust stains suddenly looked different, darker, deliberate. Zach bolted for the door, and this time, I was right behind him. But the man moved with impossible speed, blocking our exit. His face transformed completely. The casual friendliness was replaced by starvation. "Where you running, kid? You haven't even seen my collection." He flicked open a fishing knife and slowly scraped it across a wooden table, creating a sound that made my teeth ache. "It's always fun," he continued, taking a step towards us. "They wander in here, looking for adventure, giddy to see my collection, but objected when I insisted they starve them." Then he lunged, grabbed me by the collar and yanked me close. I could smell the salt and rot on his skin as he pressed the blade against my throat. I kicked him hard in the chest, breaking free from his grip. We shoved past him and sprinted toward the exit, but he recovered quickly, tackling me. Zach hurriedly grabbed a metal pole from the pile of junk and swung it with everything he had. It connected with the man's wrist with a sickening crack, and the knife clattered to the floor. We tore through the hut, searching frantically for another way out. The man rose slowly behind us, blood dripping between his fingers, his face twisted in rage. "You're part of the collection," he sneered. "You can't leave." Suddenly, I spotted a rusted flare gun. My hand shook violently as I aimed and pulled the trigger. The flare struck his shoulder, igniting his shirt. He screamed, stumbling into a stack of wooden crates and knocking over a lit candle. The shack ignited in seconds. We burst through the door, choking on smoke, and ran until our lungs burned. A lifeguard spotted us and rushed over. Between gasps for air, we explained about the man, the videos, and the attack. The lifeguard radioed for help, and we ran back toward the burning shack. But when we arrived, there was nothing. No fire, no smoke. The hut stood empty. No projector, no blood-stained floor, no tapes. Just bare shelves covered in dust. "Boys, looking for trouble?" The lifeguard's eyes narrowed. I exchanged a horrified glance with Zach. "But We were just in there. I cried. Let's get away. Zach put a shivering hand on my shoulder. Maybe the heat just got in our heads.
Why would you go? More of the stories, don't go in random strangers' houses, yo. Especially on the beach. Are you dumb? Where are the parents at? Slow, just slow. Everybody slow.
The air at Camp Redwood Lake hung thick with humidity that night, pressing down on my skin like a damp blanket. Everyone was asleep in their cabins, but my best friend Brian had that mischievous glint in his eye, the one that always meant trouble. Come on, Steven. Let's just see if the girls are still awake. He chuckled.
How does one achieve this build? I wonder.
Wake. He chuckled. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath us as we slipped on our shoes. You just want to see Madison in her PJs, I teased, trying to mask my nervousness with a smirk. We slipped out the cabin window rather than risk the squeaky door, landing softly on pine needles. The night smelled of campfire ash and the earthy scent of the lake. Crickets chirped in rhythm with our footsteps as we crept through the woods. The girls' cabin was visible through the trees when Brian suddenly grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. Dude, look! By the edge of the lake, a figure moved slowly in the moonlight. Mrs. Ritter, our counselor, dragging something heavy across the dirt path. It was large and looked disturbingly like a body wrapped in...
And that's when you turn around and go the other way. Why are y'all still watching? What are y'all doing? You just see this creature dragging something.
Burlap. What the... I breathed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Dude, that looks like a f***ing body. Brian hissed, his voice cracking. We crouched behind a massive oak, barely daring to breathe. Mrs. Ritter, who had smiled so warmly while passing out marshmallow just hours earlier, heaved the sack to the edge of the water. Her movements almost looked rehearsed. But as she lifted the sack to dump it into the lake, the frayed end unraveled and a pale hand shot out, clawing desperately at the fabric. My blood turned to ice as Rosie, the counselor's assistant, emerged, gasping. Her face was streaked with mud and what looked horribly like blood. Her eyes were wild with terror. Mrs. Ritter reacted instantly, clamping a hand over Rosie's mouth, forcing her back down. Rosie's legs thrashed violently, her muffled screams barely audible over the lapping of the lake water. We have to do something, I whispered, my mouth bone dry. No, she'll see us. Brian clutched my wrist, holding me back, but I couldn't just watch. Rosie's eyes were bulging, her nails digging futilely into Mrs. Ritter's arms. Without thinking, I grabbed a rock and hurled it into the lake. The splash echoed across the water. Mrs. Ritter's head snapped up, her eyes narrowed as she scanned the tree line. Meanwhile, Rosie collapsed into the mud and coughed violently. But Mrs. Ritter spotted us, just a shadow of movement, but enough. She rose slowly, her voice unnervingly calm as she tilted her head and chuckled.
You shouldn't have been here, boys. I didn't want to kill Rosie. I swear, I didn't. But she made me do it. She made me.
The next thing, she lunged towards our hiding spot as we bolted, crashing through the underbrush. The security exit! Mr. Blake's cabin! Brian shouted over his shoulder. I could hear Mrs. Ritter behind us, closing in with unnatural speed, asking us to stop. Ahead, the woods were a blur of shadows and branches that whipped across my face. We had nearly made it, when suddenly, Brian's foot...
This gives the Promised Neverland. When the kids was running through the forest and Sister Girl
caught on a root, and he went down hard. Get up! I screamed, turning back. Before Brian could scramble to his feet, Mrs. Ritter was on him, bringing a rock down on his head with a sickening crunch. He crumpled instantly. I froze. A mistake. Something slammed into the back of my skull, and the world went dark. I awoke to throbbing pain, dirt in my mouth, and my hands bound tightly behind my back. Brian lay opposite me, blood matting his hair, his eyes glazed but open. Nearby, Mrs. Ritter was digging, the shovel rhythmically biting into the earth. She was humming something that nearly sounded like a lullaby.
You know,
she said conversationally, not looking up from her work.
I didn't want to hurt anyone.
She stabbed the shovel into the dirt and turned to us, her eyes wild and bloodshot.
But Rosie had it coming. She seduced my husband. I gave that girl everything.
I promise it wasn't that much of a competition at all.
Job, a place here. And she threw it in my face, Stephen. I just couldn't leave her alive.
Mrs. Ritter knelt before me.
I'm sorry. You weren't supposed to pay for her mistake. But you saw it. And now you gotta pay too.
The rusty knife in her hand caught the moonlight as she pressed it against my cheek. I felt warm blood trickle down my face. My eyes darted frantically, searching for something, anything. Then I spotted it. Brian's pocket knife, half buried in the dirt where he'd fallen. Please, I whimpered, slowly inching toward the knife. Please, I don't want to die.
It'll be over soon, sweetheart.
My fingers closed around the knife handle. One swift cut and the rope gave way. Without hesitation, I lunged at Mrs. Ritter, tackling her from behind. She screamed as we hit the ground, but I slammed her face into the dirt, momentarily stunning her. Run! I yelled, cutting Brian's bonds. We staggered through the woods, branches slashing at our faces. Behind us, Mrs. Ritter's animalistic screams echoed through the trees as she chased, closing the distance with terrifying speed. The lights of Mr. Blake's cabin appeared ahead, salvation just yards away. But Mrs. Ritter caught Brian's ankle, yanking him down. Without thinking, I grabbed a metal lantern from the porch and swung it with everything I had. It hit her face hard. Glass shattered, slicing her cheek open. Her howl of pain was cut short as the cabin door flew open, and Mr. Blake stepped out, wide-eyed at the massacre. What the hell is going on? We screamed for help as he tackled Mrs. Ritter, pinning her thrashing body to the ground until the police arrived. At dawn, paramedics confirmed Rosie had survived, beaten, traumatized, but alive. Brian and I sat wrapped in shock blankets, our hands still trembling uncontrollably. Rosie, her throat bruised and breathing labored, reached weakly for my hand.
You saved me,
she whispered, her voice barely audible.
Oh, child, I don't even know. All I know is these boys need to stop following their friends into random places, into random things. You just be your own person, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. What did you guys feel about the story? Stay safe. Love you guys, and bye. See you in the next one.